PFF's State of the Franchise continues. I'm Cam Mellor, joined today by Dr. Eric Eager, and today we're talking the Los Angeles Rams. Every discussion has to begin with the quarterback, Jared Goff.
Yeah, Jared Groff improves steadily last season from a terrible rookie season to kind of an average second-year campaign that was lifted by Sean McVay to a pretty solid third year. Now, he struggled down the stretch once defenses started to not really pay attention to the run game, once play action didn't really work as well. However, he's still able to get the Rams to the Super Bowl with a pretty impressive effort against New Orleans in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, so Goff rebounds year two was obviously something to behold in terms of the growth from year one. You do mention the running game, though, and how defenses stopped paying quite as much attention to the running game.
Yep.
Todd Gurley, there is the discussion out there with him, and what do we think for Todd Gurley's situation in 2019?
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably want to focus on Darrell Henderson more than you want to focus on Todd Gurley because, as we've talked about numerous times, the running back is basically a product of circumstances, right? So almost every single player that gets to that position of being a starting running back in the NFL has the requisite talent to take advantage of a scheme like Sean McVay's. So, the concern about Gurley in his career is substantial, but for the Rams offense, as we saw with C.J. Anderson down the stretch and in the playoffs, they're probably not really going to miss a beat in the running game. So, it's really only fantasy football purposes in terms of that question.
At that point, yes. So they do have quite the receiving trio here going forward. Cooper Kupp comes back from injury. Both Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks saw over 100 targets last year. Do we like this trio going forward as opposed to other trios maybe in the NFL?
Yeah, when we do our projections, there are a significant number of universes where they all three get 1,000 yards receiving, and the Rams do a really good job of sort of mixing and matching those. Cooks sort of the down the field threat. Robert Woods sort of does everything, and then Cooper Kupp not only in the receiving game but also in the run game as sort of that jet sweep guy. So they really missed him when when he went out, when they sort of went to that Josh Reynolds as their third receiver. So that offense, I think, going into the year, has three really impressive targets that should all be productive.
They do. They have the targets. They do lose a little bit on the offensive line. Sullivan, Saffold gone. Andrew Whitworth maybe getting up there in age as well. But let's go to defense. You have the best player maybe in football, but definitely the best defensive player on the defensive line, Aaron Donald, anchoring the defense front.
Yeah, and what you're going to see here is you're going to see possibly rejuvenated Clay Matthews on the outside there. They have struggled historically with edge pressure. Last season they got a lot in the interior with Sue and Donald. Sue's gone. They go with Matthews. Matthews has really struggled the last few years in Green Bay, but maybe with a different role with the Los Angeles Rams, he can create a lot of havoc. We know Donald can as well. We know interior pressure though, pound for pound is not as valuable as edge pressure, so they do need to get something on the edge there, for Matthews and others. Their issue, they lose LaMarcus Joyner, but they get Eric Weddle, one of the best safeties of his generation. Question mark on the defensive backfield is whether Marcus Peters can improve. He struggled early last season, got better as the season progressed. Can he get back to his days as being an all-pro with Kansas City?
So they do have kind of a lackluster, maybe linebacking core. They have a solid defensive interior. Dante Fowler comes back on a one-year deal as well. Maybe get some edge pressure there. The secondary, though, versus the linebacking core, we had the discussion all offseason, pass coverage versus pass rush. What's more valuable? Do we, as a whole, as a company, PFF, is run defense in the linebacking core, it's outweighed by their strong coverage, correct?
Yeah, 3 of the 4 teams that made the conference championship last year were in the bottom 5 in terms of run defense, whether it be yards per carry. However you measure it, the Rams were one of those teams. But the issue is when you got a great coach, a good quarterback, a good overall offense, and a great defense, you're ahead more, which means teams are going to run on you less, which means being poor in run defense doesn't quite matter as much. So, that's one of the least of my concerns defensively. The Rams seem to have everything else figured out. I think, they'll find a linebacker or two that can step up and make some plays and sort of regress to the mean positively as a run defense.
Positively is always a good thing. This was the State of the Franchise for the Los Angeles Rams. A lot to look forward to out in L.A. We'll be back next time for Dr. Eric Eager. I'm Cam Mellor. We'll see you again.